This meeting is being recorded.
Yeah. Okay.
Bless you.
So
Thank you.
Oh, I had to consent. I haven't believed I've seen that before.
So one thing we need to talk about is the future of this meeting. I sent a email, or excuse me, put a poll up on Facebook page, what, a month or so ago, 6 weeks ago, something like that, and got some ideas back. We are about to start next month meeting in person again, and with that, we're losing our third Thursday night. And losing that third Thursday night means that we have to find another way to do this if we're going to go forward. And I think that there were some positive feedback on that, but this is pretty typical of our meetings. I mean, and you would think that this meeting is easier to get to than actually going out somewhere and going face to face. But I prefer the face to face because I think it's so much more effective. So another option that we have is you probably saw on Facebook that I had a portrait session last Saturday, and the guy that runs the studio found out that I was running these Photoshop learning classes. I'm going to mute everybody. Hold on just a second. There we go. And he suggested that we could do it in his studio. And his studio is actually in Garland. It's on off Industrial over there around Shiloh and Jupiter, Plano Road, that area over close to where Vicon Village is, in that area, if you know where that is. It's that old industrial area, but the studio would actually be ideal. He's got a big white sweep that if you saw any of my images, you saw some of the background of that big white sweep. And he said that they have folks come in there all the time and hold work, sessions where they shoot, and then they sit down on their computers and they do editing. And so it is a workshop like we're talking about. And if we do that, we've got to go back to charging people some to pay for the studio. The cost would be probably about $15 each. If we had more interested, of course, cost could go down. But that's an option. I didn't know if I thought it was a really good option if we wanted to get back to doing this face to face. If we don't, we can go back. We can continue with this. We just have to find a different day and time. So the problem with doing it in that studio is that we would probably on Meetup, whenever you RSVP'd, I would ask you to pay at that time. And if we only wound up with like 3 people, then we may have to cancel and try again or something like that. So I'm not sure if if that would work or not, but it's something to think about. And you would see the studio, and if you decided that you wanted to join me in some of my portraiture sessions, you could do that too at other times. So anyway, I will probably put some kind of poll out there. You guys can give me suggestions, whatever. I'm very willing to continue doing this, but I don't want to, I don't want to do it if we're not going to have, the attendees that we need. Now I know that Chris and Robin, you guys have been on here since the start, and that's been 2 years ago when we started it face to face, and then we wound up at the Friends of Rowlett Animals shelter face to face, and then we started doing it this way. So I don't know how helpful this is. We started off doing it very much elementary, and I think that people got bored with that because I was trying to give you the fundamentals. And we've wound up now doing some fairly advanced stuff, or at least some intermediate stuff. And I think maybe if we did some more intermediate type stuff, maybe we'd get more people interested. Depends on what the topic would be. And I don't know how many actual Photoshop folks we have, and Photoshop people that want to learn more Photoshop. A lot of people may think they have everything they need, which is fine. But anyway, just thought I would throw that out there to think about. Okay. So what we're going to do tonight, and by the way, I apologize again for last week, just to let you know, last Thursday or last month, the morning of the meeting, I'm sitting here working on getting ready for it. And we bought a generator. We get tired of all these blackouts happening here, you know, in Rowlett. We seems like every time we have a storm, we have a blackout. So we went and bought a generator, and they were installing the gas line for the generator, and they cut our fiber optic line and just kept digging. Didn't even come and tell us or anything. Didn't know what it was.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, we got Frontier out here, and they knew immediately what it was. And then and then that day they gave us a temporary line. And then we left on vacation, then we come back, and then they buried the line for us. So hopefully, you know, these things that are a little out of your control, hopefully we won't have any more of that. But anyway, I just wanted to explain why we had to cancel so abruptly, and I couldn't get anybody online because I had to do it on my phone, and it just wouldn't connect on the phone and everything. So sorry for the last minute there. So, all right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Yeah, my entire desktop. Okay, and let me know if you cannot see my screen. I have Photoshop open. Let's see. I have this bar at the top, and I always have trouble. There we go. Move that over to my other screen. Okay. If you can't see my screen, then just let me know. And by the way, you're all muted, so you'll have to take yourself off mute if you want to comment. And feel free to comment, by the way. So we're going to start by talking about the TK7 panel. And, you know, last time we were together, we talked about the TK7 panel, and I just kind of introduced you to all the different panels and the stuff that's on the panels, and didn't really talk about how to use them very much. And tonight I'm going to start just by kind of introducing you to the main panel that I use and how I can use it and how you can use it if you decide to go this way. Here's an image that I shot. Let's see, shot in Paris, Texas last week when we went. I guess that was last week. Seems like longer ago than that. But sometimes when I'm shooting, this is really dark, but sometimes when I'm shooting out like this, especially in the middle of the day, I like to expose for the sky and then come in and lighten everything else. You can do it the other way around, but if you do it the other way, you know, if you do it the other way around, you have pretty much of a blown out sky. You could expose for the midtones as well and come in here and lighten part and darken part and that sort of thing. And that, you know, it would work just as well. But I wanted to show you how I do this with the TK7 panel, how I get an image out of this. First of all, I want to show you how I bring an image into Camera Raw. And I use Camera Raw. You can do exactly the same thing over in Lightroom. But you can see that when I bring it in, I don't have anything selected. You can do a preset in Camera Raw just like you can over in Lightroom. And I have some presets set up, and presets will do some detail farming, which it does some sharpening. And it also comes in and does turns on remove chromatic aberration, turns on use profile corrections. And I always want those selected. And you know, particularly because if I get into an image and I notice there's some chromatic aberration, sometimes it's harder to come back here and get rid of it. And I like the detail because it just sharpens. This is the way I sharpen. I can come in, actually, this is on 80. Whenever I come in, let me change this back to show you the exact way that it comes in. I have a default to 80 here. And when it comes in, then I come in here and take the masking. I don't know if you've ever done this or not. If you know about it, if you press your Alt or Option key and move your masking, it gives you a mask. And whatever's white is what it's going to sharpen. So if I do this and I want to sharpen, there's certain areas I don't want to sharpen the sky in particular. So then I'll let it up there and then I'll make this 120 and it will sharpen everything but the sky at 120. And I got that value from Moose Peterson's sharpening tutorial that's on Kelby Training. And I'm not sure where he got it. And I'm sure that you can do, you know, he had a method behind his madness, but he didn't really explain it. He just said that's what he does. And I started doing it and it works pretty good. The other thing that I do, sorry, I've got kind of a raspy voice tonight, but is I come in here and I typically will take texture up somewhere around 5 to 10, and then I'll take clarity up because I want to add in quite a bit of contrast, and it's usually around 25. Now in this image here, it's pretty dark, so you don't really see the effect of that. And I could come in here and lighten it up just so you can see the effect. And you can see that it does sharpen it a little bit here. So you see that there's some good texture, but you'll see it better when we get it over in Photoshop. So I'm going to take this, take it off, and then I'm going to go over to Photoshop. And over in Photoshop, this is what I,
So Bob,
hello? Yes,
you don't use the contrast
slider.
slider?
I do sometimes, but I like the way clarity is a mid-tone contrast, and it just takes the mid-tones up. And to me, that's the mid-tones that I'm looking to sharpen there. Sometimes I will add a little bit of contrast as well to the overall image, but most of the time I'm just, for this anyway, I'm wanting to target the mid-tones. So that's why I'm doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the TK7 panel here, and I'm going to kind of explain what some of these are, and then I'm going to show you the editing of this particular image, what I'm going to do. And we've talked about this before, but I'm going to get into it a little bit more than I did last time. At least I think so. It's been a couple of months. I don't really remember what I said, to be honest, but there are 4 ways that you can create a mask with this TK7 panel. Excuse me. This first one is the luminosity mask. Second one is a zone mask. This one is a color mask, and this one is a saturation and vibrance mask. Now the saturation and vibrance I have not used, so I can't really get into that. It's something I'm going to have to learn how to do before I explain it very much. But the other 3, to me, are pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy to work with. The luminance mask, you click on this and it gives you a mask right away with the darks and the lights. Luminance, of course, means brightness, right? So you're masking based on the brightness of the image. So with this is right in the middle. It just takes what you have. And what you want to do is target a brighter area or a darker area to edit. So in this case, I'm going to target the sky, okay? So if I'm targeting the sky, it is a brighter area. So with the brighter area, I want to look at the lights, okay? If I wanted to target the darker areas, I would be clicking on these darker masks. And then you have midtones, if you want to target midtones. But for this, I'm going to target the sky. So right now it's on 1. So if I click 2, it's, oops. Okay, this is explaining it exactly backwards. Over here, no, I didn't. I'm doing it right. Okay, sorry. If I go to 3, your sky gets a little bit darker. If I go 2, it gets a little bit brighter, and 1, it gets a little bit brighter. So this is basically where we're going to start. And I am going to, the mid part of all of this allows you to edit your mask, to modify your mask. So I'm going to take this modify and I'm going to pull it this way, and it's going to brighten the other areas. I don't really want that, so I'm going to pull it this way, and I want it to darken these other areas. So there we go. We're beginning to darken it here a little bit. And what we're doing is we're trying to keep the sky brighter than the rest of the areas. So I'm going like this. Keep going. Now the sky's getting a little dark, so I'm going to bring it back. So the idea is that if I'm targeting the sky here, I want everything else to be black. So what I can do here, it's not totally white, it's just gray, which means that it's going to be, you're going to need a stronger adjustment to give it a big effect, because the gray means whatever effect you put on it is going to be dampened by how dark of a gray that is. In this case, it's kind of a mid-tone gray. Now, the other things in the modify, if I click this one, it increases that difference. If I click this one, it decreases the difference. Okay, so you're getting back and forth here. So if I want to just nudge it a little bit, I can click one of these. Another thing you can do is, these are painting brushes. I can click on this black and it creates a black painting brush. You'll notice down here in the toolbar that the black is selected, and then I can come in here and I can paint over all of this because I don't want it to be part of the selection. So it makes it easy to come in here, and now I basically have the sky selected with the trees and the building not selected in all the foreground here. So this is one way to come in here and do this, is with a luminosity mask. Okay, and whenever I'm ready to do something with it, I can output it to one of these. I'm down here on the bottom of the panel, to one of these functions. This is a curves tool. This is a levels tool, brightness and contrast, hue and saturation. This is photo filters. These are dodge and burn. This is a list of additional functions you can do. This is a white mask that you paint in what you want to affect. This is a black mask where you paint with white what you want affected. This is a selection. It just creates a selection for you. And then other things. This just puts it out to a whatever current, I'm on this particular layer, whatever layer you're on, it will push that out as a mask on that layer, just a mask. And this, I forgot what this is. When you push, if you want to know what something is, you can push Alt or Option and then hover over it, and it will tell you what it is up here in the top. So if I hover over that, just masked to pixels, creates a new pixel layer on the layers panel of the mask preview. So these are how you want to utilize the mask. But this is how you can create a luminosity mask where you can come in here and just affect the sky. So now I'm going to throw that away. Any questions on that? No questions. Okay. I'm going to throw that away, the entire thing, and start over, and we're going to look at the zone mask. So if I click this, it opens up a color picker, and it's asking what zones for that color do you want. So I'm going to click here, and it's going to start with blue. And if you look, these are the different zones, 1 through 9, okay? And I have clicked this as the zone I wanted it to mask. So you can then do the same thing you could on the other one. You could go to zone 6 instead of 5. And it's a little bit better of a mask actually than what we had on the other side. Then you can tweak it down here, pushing this way, brightens it up a little bit in the background, and you get a much better mask than what we had with the luminosity mask in this instance. Again, I can click on this, come down here and paint all of this out, making sure I don't get any of the sky. And you've got another mask where you can just deal with the sky. Okay, and then I could push that out to a, for example, a curves layer, and then come in here and darken the sky like that, or lighten the sky. And notice it's just doing the sky. Bring this over here. If you want a little contrast in the sky, push this over here, and you get a nice blue sky. So that's one way to do it. And I'm going to throw that away. Any questions on that? That was pretty easy and fast.
So I have a question. There were, when you were selecting your sky, you had 2 slider bars. What was the one to the right?
Okay, I'm going to throw it away and start over because I don't remember.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Okay, right here. I select it over here. This bar right here.
Yes.
Let's see if it's going to tell me.
Okay.
it controls the width of a selected zone. Okay.
Okay.
I rarely have used this, so I'm learning it as well. Oh, okay. So it could narrow that zone. So the more you push it to the left, the narrower that zone becomes. So so in this case, if I selected zone 6, it's going to give you, everything from the edge of 6 to the other edge of 6. If I narrow it, I can do this and narrow it down, and it's going to
Oh, I see.
only select
Yeah. Okay.
certain parts. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So any other questions on that?
And the computer decides which zone is what part of the picture, correct?
Yeah, you click in here, wherever you click in here. So if I did it again and I clicked over here, this is really dark. So if I click over here, the zone is actually going to be way over here because your dark zones are to your left and your light zones
Okay.
are to your right. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? This is a pretty powerful tool and it's so quick and easy. The next one we're going to look at is the colors. And I love the colors because, I mean, you can do the same thing in Lightroom and in Camera Raw, but to me, it's so much easier here. And you can also invert your selection, which you cannot do in Lightroom and Camera Raw. And I'll show you an example of that here in just a second. But here I have selected, you can see down here on this is like a color wheel. And I selected blue when I selected, and it gives me this. And I can take this if I want to and expand it so that I can make sure I get all of the blues that I want included. Didn't make much of a difference, but it's pretty helpful. Then you have this where you can slide this down and it helps you to brighten that area as well. You can also do this, which doesn't do much. You can also modify here, which helps brighten that up as well. Push this over just a little bit more. And now you've got some pretty good distinction up here. So then once again, I would come down here and select my black brush. Come in here and paint this out. Making sure that I don't cover part of the sky. So here we go. We have this mask. So I'm going to use this to show you my edit on this particular image. Let's see if I can get this on there. So I'm going to output this to curves. And with curves, I'm going to take this and I'm going to push it in here, which is going to darken the sky. This right here is going to lighten it a little bit to give it some contrast. So it's a pretty nice looking sky, maybe just a little dark. So it kind of depends on what you want to do. In the middle of the day, is this sky this dark? I'm not really sure. But now we want to brighten the rest of the image. So what can we do? All I have to do is copy this curves layer, Command J, will duplicate it, then come in here and invert it, Command or Control I, inverts it. Now I've got this, but instead of it being me darkening it, I want to lighten it. So I'm going to come in here, move this out. Now what I can do is grab this thing and lighten, and it's not going to affect the sky. So now you've got this area down here lightened. The sky it's going to be lightened a little bit because this is not completely black. It's just a dark gray. So what you could do is come in here. If you wanted that to be darker, you could push it over and darken it a little bit more so that this effect that it has on it is not so much. But now we've got a really nice image. It may still be a little dark here. You may still need to do some tweaks to it, but now we have a good base image to begin with when we started with this. You have something like this. Okay. And, again, you can come in here with another layer and lighten up around in here and do some spot checking and maybe do some darkening manually in some of these places. But in general, you have a much better beginning than you had otherwise. Now, this is not a great picture. You got these guys in the trucks back here and all this kind of stuff. But this is a memorial that was dedicated in 1931, I think it said. So I just thought it was kind of interesting, but in the middle of the day, it's kind of hard to get a good evenly based shot, good dynamic range, that sort of thing. So any more questions? Pretty simple, right? With this, it makes
Bob.
it so easy. Yes.
When you were in ACR,
Mhm.
when you went to detail,
Uh-huh.
there was a slider for mask.
Yep.
I do not have, nor have I ever seen such a thing.
Okay. It's, excuse me. This is, yeah, this has been here for a long time. And basically what you do is you press Alt or Option. And when you move this around, it allows you to decide what part of the image you're actually applying this sharpening to. So whatever's white is what your sharpening is being applied to.
You have a different set of I have one detail tab. You have two. No,
You
wait.
do?
What'd you do? No,
I
I
have two.
have no masking slider on the detail tab. This
You
is
have no mask?
That's correct.
Really?
And I'm on
What?
22.4.2. I just updated today. That's interesting.
That's weird. This masking's been in there for ages.
Yeah, that is weird. Okay, never mind. Thanks.
Sure. Maybe it's a setting. Maybe if you go Google it, maybe there's a setting you can adjust.
Could be.
All right, I'm going to do one more here for you. This is the Methodist Church in Paris. And again, I shot it in the middle of the day, just like some of you guys did. And I want to darken the sky a little bit and then just kind of brighten the rest of it. Same thing I just did. But I want to show you as well in Camera Raw. Again, I do something. Here's my sharpening. And I go into basic and I'll push this somewhere between 0 and 10. And oops, sorry, I'm on the wrong thing here. No wonder it looks funny. Texture, somewhere between 0 and 10 in that area, and then clarity up somewhere in the 20s. And it just seemed like it just suddenly, now it's so much sharper and so much clearer when I do that. The other thing I do in here, I know everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of people like the leaning towers and all this kind of stuff. But it bothers me when I shoot something like this with a wide angle and it's got distortion. So I almost always come in here and use the use the geometry and straighten it up. Now I already have these things right here that you use. Now, if you've never used this, I'll show you how it works. You have these little things that you come in here and you drag along the side of a structure, something that's straight, something that you want it to use as a guide for straightening. And then you do another one along the same, that's parallel to it, along another edge, like right here. And when you're done and you let go, it does a little bit of straightening. Now it does cropping when it does that, because it's got to crop when it turns these files. So it cut a little bit of this car, which is fine, and it got rid of the end of the car over here, which I am so glad. So I always come in here whenever I shoot a picture of something like this, and we're going to do another one here in just a minute. I think I have one more. And it's going to straighten it up. But this is a nice picture of the Methodist Church there in Paris. And when I straighten it up, I got this. I also have it detailed for sharpening. And then I also come in here and did the texture and the clarity. So when I do that in return, it comes into Photoshop, of course, like this. So now I'm going to do pretty much the same thing I did just a minute ago. I used color a minute ago. I'm going to use, it looked like the zones worked out really well. So I'm going to click here and try to do the zones and see what I get. Not quite as good.
You know, what did you just do that turned it into a monochrome?
What I did, let me close that. I just selected one of these up here. That's all I did.
Right.
And it starts with the default value. And with the zones, I clicked on this and it wants some feedback. So I have to tell it the blue up here because I want to mask the blue. So I'm clicking the blue, and then I click OK, and it gives me a mask based on that blue.
Okay.
Okay.
I understand.
Okay. So then what I can do is come in here and try to mask out that blue, and it's really not working for me. So, I mean, I don't even know where to start here. It's on 7. Those two are the same zone, so it's not going to work for me in a zone. It just happened that on the other one, the sky and the building were different zones. So they had different kind of brightness. But in here, the blue and the color of this brick is pretty much the same zone. So zones is not going to work. So let me try color. And we're going to do it right here. Now we're getting somewhere. So now we have the blue up here and we have the differential down below. So I'm going to take this and spread it again. I almost always will do this. It doesn't make it right or anything. It's just the way I do it. And then I come in here and I'm going to push this over a little bit and see what it does. Okay, it's beginning to give me a little bit of blue, a little bit more. Okay, now it's beginning to open up down here. So that's probably a little bit too much. I'm going to modify here, see if that helps. It's going to do the same thing. Okay, so basically, I'm going to have the ability to come with my black brush and wipe out all of this, and where I just have the sky and the black down below. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to click on the black brush, and I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to just cover this, and make sure your brush is real soft. I'm going to make it about 65. And come in here. The reason I don't want it soft is because if I get too much to the edge, it's going to bleed over into the sky. So I want it to be fairly hard, not totally hard, but fairly hard. So I'm going to come in here and take these things out. I don't really worry about this pole over here because it's not going to make that much difference, or at least I don't think it will. So I'm going to come over here. I just did too much. Come over here, make sure I just get this. And this is all just kind of subjective here. I'm going to stop right here. You have a little bit up here in these little guys. I'm not going to worry about that because I want it to kind of fit in with the sky up there. You don't want to get this as a sharp edge all the way around because if you do, there could be some haloing and stuff like that. You really want it to gradate. So this is gray up here. It's not totally white, and that's okay. So
now, a question about the hard and the soft brush. Did you
Yes.
do you change that at the top there? Does
There's-
that mean feathering? Is that what you're talking about, or is it something different?
I'm talking about, yes, I'm talking about feathering.
Okay.
So basically you could go here and change the hardness right here. I used a shortcut, which is Alt Control, and if you push up and down, you can change the brightness. I mean the feathering there. So that's what I use, and I've just gotten so used to it. I should have explained that. Sorry. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, so now I've got this down here selected. The sky is separated from it pretty good. So now I'll just do levels this time just to be different. And it's going to create a levels adjustment with that mask on there. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to push this, and it's going to darken the sky as I push it to the right. Okay, this is going to add some of that brightness back to give a little contrast. Right there. So now I have a really blue sky, and if that's too blue, then you can adjust it here. And now I just want to lighten this building just a very small touch. You might think that this is perfect, and if you do, that's great. I could also just do a curves and add a little bit more contrast to it, whatever. I'm going to, let's just do a curves layer. It doesn't matter. You can do a different layer. You can copy the same one, but I'm going to do a curves, and I'm going to copy this mask up to here. And the way you do that is you press Alt or Option and just drag it up there, and it copies it up there. Real easy. Now I'm going to take that and I'm going to invert it. Now we're talking about everything but the sky. But you can see, if you click on your Alt or Option and click on this, you can see the mask, and you can see it's it's gray and it's kind of a light to mid-tone gray. So it's going to be affected with whatever you do. It's just not going to be affected as much as the rest of the image. Okay. So with curves, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add a little bit of just a tiny bit of darkness and quite a bit of lightness to give it a little bit of contrast and brightness. Okay. So you can see if I do this, that's the difference that it is. And that may be too much. And if it is, you can bring it down with opacity like this if you want to. And I got it down at about 57%. So now if I click on both of these, put them in a group, you can turn it off and on and see the difference of what you've done. And you could also saturate this green. If you wanted to, you could do another one where you could do a mask by clicking on green. Excuse me. And now you've got this green stuff selected. You can even make it a little bit more like that. Brighten it just a little bit. Even a little more. And a little more. And now you can come in here to this hue and saturation. And I could come in here with saturation and bump saturation up. And it's just bumping the greens. So if I turn that off, turn it on, and it's just a very subtle amount where I've saturated the greens. I could also do the reds up here the same way. If you wanted to really saturate some of this stuff, this is a good way that you can do it. Okay? What do you think? Interesting?
Yeah, that's really effective. It does a nice job. And it's easy.
It is easy.
It looks easy. Let's put it that way.
I mean,
Well, you
it
know,
looks like it does a good job of masking what you really want to mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that I still have a lot to learn about how to use it. But for the little bit I know, it's awesome.
What other edits would you do? Would you do any cropping or eliminating those wires or bringing out the wording in the church?
I could do that. I mean, the wires I probably wouldn't do. You know, that would be pretty tedious. I could do it, and it might look better, but they're not real bad. They're not real noticeable. I might try to get rid of this car over here. I don't like that. And I really don't like this pole either, but I'd probably leave it just because it would be too difficult. Down here, it becomes a little work. But
Well, it doesn't bother me, that little bit of white building.
Over here.
Yeah, it keeps, my eye keeps pulling over there. But those are basics. That's nothing as advanced as what you just did, but
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you could real easily copy, cut, and paste it over here on top of that, and nobody would ever know. See
Except
what I'm
you.
saying? That's right, except me. So, I mean, and I do stuff like that all the time. If it bothers me a lot, you know, and that now that you bring it up, it does bother me a lot. And it wouldn't be very hard to come in here and just copy that and just paste it over here. I know people, that's, you know, that's against the rules. That's, you know, all that kind of stuff. But to me, if it's not materially making a big difference, it's just kind of doing what you wish you had done when you shot the picture, or can't control because, you know, there's a big orange trash can out in front or something like that. Then
There's always a trash can.
So to me, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that, you know, to enhance your picture. But that's just, you know, everybody has their own opinion, and I respect everybody's opinion. So, you know, if you are a purist where you have to get it right in camera, then that's fine. You know, everybody, you know, has their own way. But yeah, I would probably get rid of this car, and I might crop it in. I don't really know. Probably crop it in over here to get rid of it. That would be the easy way. So just come up here, excuse me, change this, and then bring it in like this. Take this and bring it in like this. And didn't quite come far enough here, but that kind of takes care of those two things. And what that did was it changed the perspective. I mean, the aspect ratio of your image too, because I just said, I'm just cutting it off no matter what. And then
Yeah, and I just realized what a problem I've had cropping items, and now I'm seeing, oh, we want this 8x10 or 8x11. Oh my gosh, I butchered this picture and I can't get it back to a good aspect ratio. So yeah, there's so much to think about.
Yeah, there is. And you know, if I've shot images before and then they want to order an 8x10 and I didn't allow enough room. So I have to do that all the time, where I have to go in and maybe add some sky, and I always look for where's the easiest place to add and make this work and still maintain the composition that I want. And if I needed this to be an 8x10, you know, I'd come up here and that's this one right here, and I need it to be an 8x10. That probably works out just fine because it's not really hurting me.
Not really.
So,
and if you wanted to take that wording, the First Methodist Church, you would just select that part and play with blacks, or
you could.
I'm still in pre-K here, okay? I know.
Yeah, me.
Well, you could do that, but you don't want it to not fit in with the rest, because everything here, you know. So what you may do is you could try. Oops, sorry. Need to be a rectangular marquee. You could try doing something here where you just select inside that ridge there, and then do a. Whoops. Do a. You could try your contrast, or you could use it with curves. So I tend to like the curves contrast because so now it's only looking, if you look at since I made that selection and then selected curves, it created a mask, and that mask is just allowing us to affect that little square or that little rectangle there. Okay. Because that's the way I did it. So now you could come in here and take your curves, and you could push, that's going to darken it a little bit, and this is going to lighten it quite a bit. So
yeah. Oh well, there's a little bit there that might work. Yeah.
So you can see that. What you could also do then is come in here and feather that a little bit so it's not so hard around the edges. And you come in with something like this, and so it's a little bit lighter than everything else, but it does pop out there. And if you're okay with that, then you're good. You may want to feather that even more. And when you feather it,
is that still on the curves menu? That
yes.
Feather.
Yes.
I'm also in pre-K, Pat.
That's okay.
I get the selection part. So you just have to select the one part that you want to work with. But not only am I in pre-K, but I've been retained.
Yeah, we're all pre-K.
Held back. I'll be with you, sister.
And you can see here.
I like saying that. I like seeing it. It doesn't bother me. It's a little red.
It is.
So
what was it in real life? Was it painted in there?
I just a divot.
Gold letters.
They're gold letters. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it in real life. This is where I just made it a little brighter. And even if that's a little too much, I mean, you can play with the opacity and bring it down if it's too much for you, and try to make it look a little more natural. And that, to me, looks pretty natural right there.
That looks good there.
So then you got it out
it's
here.
Beautiful building.
It is beautiful.
It's gorgeous.
Okay. Anything else?
So a little story about this church. I don't remember who was standing there with me. A lady came out, saw us with all the cameras, wondered and she said the church, the stained glass windows were told the birth of Christ to the resurrection. However, the last two, the resurrection was placed before the crucifixion, and they just left it that way. So it's all in order except when you get to the end of his life. It's backwards. And she says it's just kind of an interesting tidbit of information about the windows in there.
Oh, that architecture in Paris was stunning. And who would have thought that it would be one of those dying towns?
Yeah.
Just absolutely incredible.
Hey,
Okay.
Bob,
Yes.
FYI, on the details tab over in ACR,
Yes.
on the slider, the sharpness slider, there's a
Yep.
triangle, and if you click it, all those other sliders appear. And if you click
Oh,
it
okay. You had it like that, and then opened it up. Okay. And then
no,
you have
detail.
ones.
Yeah,
Ah, you have
okay,
no.
see that triangle to the right, sharpening?
Yes.
Click it, and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait a
Okay.
minute.
Oh, there's a
Yeah.
whole.
Well, no,
Mine-
I don't. What's this? I didn't know.
I think mine is
Look at it.
automatically open, but the noise reduction wasn't.
No way.
The noise reduction wasn't open, and neither was the color noise reduction. I didn't realize
Yeah, I
that those
know.
were there either. Cool.
Look at it again.
Thank
I don't
you.
understand.
Cool.
Well, but now you got duplicates. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, well, but I got my
Okay.
maskings.
All right. So that was, I said there was one more, but I decided not to do it. So that's it for TK7 panel. Is there anything in regard to that that's that you have questions on? I can get more into it as I go. There was one thing I just want to mention right quick. Sorry. This area down here, we got this plus, minus, times, equal. You can take mask and add them together, or you can subtract one mask from another, or you can select the intersection of two masks. So that's what these are for. And once you select them, then you hit equal and it calculates what that mask is. So if I wanted to just have the color mask of blue, and I wanted to subtract it from another, a blank mask or whatever, maybe, it probably invert it for me or something like that. So if I wanted this green and I wanted to add it to the blue because I wanted to darken them both, then I could do two masks and then add them together, and I could then darken them the same amount. So kind of interesting stuff there.
Yeah.
And I'm
Now-
just, go ahead.
This TK7 thing, is that always there, or do you have to click on something to get it to show up?
You actually have to go buy it.
Oh, okay.
It's but it's $27 or $28.
Okay.
It's very, very reasonable. Tony Kuiper is the guy who created this. And just a little bit on that, the TK8 panel is already out in beta. And the reason he went ahead and put it out there and actually let us have it too, is because the M1 Max will not work with TK7. So he put the TK8 out there and made the adjustments so that it can work, so that the folks that bought TK7 will have TK8 that they can work with. So the TK8 is coming probably in the next few months or something. But the panels, I looked at them in the past, and the panels are almost, they're evolving with new things here and there, but they're almost always pretty much the same. This is the Go panel. The Go panel is almost the same as, I can't remember what he called it, another panel. It's just laid out differently. So there's like 7 or 8 panels that you get, and the Go panel and the Rapid Mask, that's what it's called. The Rapid Mask panel, which was the original, they're almost identical, but the Go panel is slightly different, has different stuff down here, different way to get to it, but it's almost exactly the same thing. So there's a couple of panels that are very similar. So that's why I only have 3 of the 7, I think there are 6 or 7, because these are only ones that I thought I may use. This panel here is the combo panel that has a whole bunch of different functions in it, but a lot of it's the same. You can paint with black, you can paint with white. I'm not sure what the green one is. You can add a stroke to something, you can add fill to something, you can blur something. I don't remember what these are for. ACR sounds like Adobe Camera Raw, but I'm not sure. You can do an inverse, luminosity, just lots of different things on this particular one. Web sharpen, you can do web sharpening here. And then you have these actions in here that you can do that he has included, his actions for things. So I mean, there's a lot of different things here, and I've used some of those actions and they're pretty good. Then there's this, which is a batch tool where you can run images in batch. I haven't found this to be any better than the image processor that comes with Photoshop, which is over here under scripts, image processor. And all it does is it allows you to do pretty much the same thing. You can use all of the open files and create JPEGs and post them somewhere, or excuse me, save them in a folder. You can add actions to them as you go. You can put your copyright information in here. All of that can be done as, you know, at one time in batch. And you can do the same thing over here if you want to. It's pretty much the same thing. Just a few extra things like extra sharp. I'm not sure what that does. But I put this out here because I was going to try it at one point, but I've been using this for years and it still works really well. So why not use it if you're used to it?
So where do we go to get this TK7 panel?
If you go goodlight.com.
Goodlight.com?
Goodlight. Mm-hmm. I think that's
Yeah,
what
I
it is.
just typed in TK panel for Photoshop and it came up to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Do
started
the
to
major-
say-
can y'all hear me? I can't tell.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt. Do you all typically, do you guys have the monthly Photoshop subscription? Is that,
Yes.
so you all do that and then you add these things to it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. When you buy it, you have the option to spend another $25 or whatever and get all the tutorials that go with it. And I bought both of them. I think it's $48 for both of them. So it's
For the TK7 or the Photoshop?
TK7.
TK7.
Yeah.
Felicia,
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was the last holdout on CS6. I guess you are. I only jumped,
I don't know what that is.
I only jumped to the subscription. I really hate software, but I jumped to it and it's worth it. I mean, you know.
I like it. I did too. I decided that was going to be my little splurge for myself each month, and I like it. I was using, what was I using? I was using it was Photoshop Express.
Oh,
Oh.
Yeah, and it just, you know, it's nothing like this. Now, have you rearranged all of your boxes and icons and things to suit your needs? Because it doesn't look like mine.
That is correct. I have.
Okay.
And that was the first two classes that we did 2 years ago, was how to set this up in your own way. And I've even changed it since then. So as you go, you can change it and you can create your own workspace. Your workspaces are up here. You can see I named one Bob Woodfin Photography, but it comes with essentials, 3D, motion, painting, but it has one for photography, which is probably what you have.
Yes, that's what I have.
Okay, so you can create your own, and when you create your own, you can rearrange things and set it up however you want it and save it that way. And then you know, if you ever goof it up and mess it up, you can always go back to the essentials or photography and start over and that sort of thing. So, but I decided about a year ago to move my tools panel over here so I would have all this room for my picture. And I know that that's not what a lot of people like, but I've gotten so used to it now that, you know, I always look over here instead of looking over here like I did in the first month or so. And I always have layers over here down at the bottom, and I have properties and libraries here, and then I have history and actions up here. But you can put whatever panels you want. If I want to put the TKs in here, they would be tabs along here if I wanted them to be. All you got to do is drag it over there and it create a panel for it. So anyway, we need to move along, but if you need some help with that, I'll be glad to help you out.
Oh, thank you.
maybe if we get back to live, maybe we could go over the fundamental.
Absolutely.
Maybe
Absolutely. It's whatever works.
That's something I'm not sure about in Photoshop. And so I might, that might be something for one lesson.
Okay. Okay.
He's cute.
This is Landon Liston. He's the son of one of our
Oh.
members.
Judge and Rowlett's son too. Yep.
Yep.
Mhm.
He graduated last year from Rowlett High School, and I did his senior pictures. And this was taken at Boat Docks over by Bass Pro Shop over on Ray Hubbard. They have a boat back here somewhere that they have docked there, and he is a licensed driver of the boats. So he's now a Texas Tech Red Raider, but took these last year. I think it was in June, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was so hot. And you can tell if we look at him, you can see the sweat on his brow up
Oh
here,
yeah.
and the redness on his cheeks and his nose and everything. So it was pretty warm. But again, I want to go back to the raw file and show you how it came in, because let's make sure. Yeah. So I'm going to go back here. Okay, this is how it came in. This is straight out of camera, and this is what the file will look like when you import it. If you import them, if you download them and try to do some of this stuff, I'm going to take this to 0 and this to 0, just so you can see for sure. And detail to 80.
Does everybody have the red in the background? Or is that just my computer?
No, we all have it. That's
Okay.
That's a warning. What that is, if you look up here in the upper right corner, this is the histogram, and I have highlights turned on up here. If I click on that, it turns it off. But any
okay, I see it. Yeah, it's
any blown
glowing.
highlights, right? It shows me in red blown highlights. In this case, I don't really care, but in some cases I do care, and I try to go back and do something with it. But in this case, I don't care. But I wanted to show you that even with portraits, I'll come in here and do the same thing. I'll take this and push it up. I don't want his skin to be sharpened, so I'm going to take it as far as I can where his skin goes away. And you notice that his beard is still selected. I do want that to be sharpened. His hair a little sharpened. His eyes are being sharpened. Even the skin around his eyes is being a little sharpened, and that's okay. His clothes and all, and in the background. So we have some of that, and I stop as soon as I get out, where his skin is not being sharpened. I'll change this to 120. And that's just me. This is just a thing that I do. Again, just because I like to pre-sharpen with that, and that's the way I pre-sharpen. Then I'll come in here and I add a little bit of texture, usually around 5 to 10 in that area. In this case, I stopped at 9. I'll take clarity and I'll push it, and you'll see him begin to get a little bit darker, more contrast, and I'll stop it at 24. And that's just me. Then I'll come in here and I'll run auto. And I like to run auto because it does a pretty good job of coming in here and giving me the correct value for exposure and highlights and that sort of thing. Sometimes I'll tweak it. In fact, more often than not, I'll tweak it a little bit. But in this instance, I'm going to leave it like it is. Also, that didn't change back.
When you click auto, does that affect the
sharpening
adjustments that you did?
No. I can do that first, and it's not going to make. What auto does is it works on the exposure areas right here. Now, if I've done something manually, what I do manually overrides it. Okay, so I wanted to show you, this is the white balance I started with. Look how yellow that is. So what I try to do whenever I'm out is to shoot a gray card. And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. If I forget it, then I have to do something like this. I have to come in here and determine where is a neutral color that I can select. In this case, we have some whites over here, and I don't want pure white. I want something that's got some gray in it. So I'm looking for something with some gray. Now you've got concrete panels along here. Concrete in, mostly is a gray color. It tends to have some blue in it every now and then. So you have to kind of watch for that. But I'm going to click down here because this typically should be a neutral color. So if I click here, look at what it does. Now it looks blue, but it is blue. It is blue. Now, if you come in here and look at his skin, look how natural his skin looks. The rest of this area is blue. So, I mean, there's a lot of blue everywhere. His shirt's blue and all of this. So just that one little click brought me to something very close to where I want to be. In fact, I'm not even going to touch it after this. So the important thing about portraits and white balance is to, is to get your skin tones right. And in this instance, I like the skin tones. Now I am going to tweak it a little bit for exposure. I think it's too dark. So I'm going to push the exposure up just a little bit, like right there, and maybe the shadows up just a touch, like right in there. And I like that a lot more. So we've got a pretty good image now of this guy. And then I would go into Photoshop and do my tweaking. In Photoshop, I've been preaching to you that do everything you can in Camera Raw and Lightroom and use Photoshop for all that extra stuff. I think Photoshop is much more powerful and much easier for me anyway to do the retouching than trying to do it in Lightroom or Camera Raw. So I will do all of my retouching over there. Okay, so here's where we are. Now there's one more thing that I did it over here rather than doing over in Camera Raw. And that, let me double click on this, go back here. You can see how crooked that it is here. It's leaning to the right. So when I went into Photoshop, I noticed that and I straightened it up over here. So if you don't know how to straighten it up, you can go to your crop tool. Sorry, sometimes my tools don't click. Okay, let's take this. It needs to be the 4:6 format. Where is that? Right there. Okay, now because I had it changes the size because I had it the way. Okay, move it over here. Okay, so it's a little bit too much right here. So, and I think it's cropped down actually somewhere in here. So this is the crop. And if I want to straighten something, you've got the straighten tool right here. And I just click on this little thing and then I can drag a line. And when I drag a line, it takes that line and straightens it vertically. See it move a little bit? So it straightens that vertically. If I wanted to straighten it horizontally, I would find a horizontal line and pull across, and then it would straighten the picture to make that perfectly horizontal. So that's the way you use the straighten tool. Okay. So when I have an image like this, and I'm going to, we're down to 45 minutes, so I'm going to run through some of these others fairly quickly, but I'm going to do this one, spend a little bit of time to get you started. When I look at this, I have to think about a couple of things. First of all, this is a senior. It's not a model. So if I have a senior, I have to abide by, or any kind of image I'm retouching that is a commissioned image. In other words, somebody's buying it. I need to be true to who it is. So I don't have a lot of freedom. I couldn't come in here and give them a mustache or something like that. So, however, if I've got a model, that picture is mine and hers or his, but I have a lot more freedom. I can go in and complete my vision the way I see it. Here, I can't change who he is. So I have to keep that in mind. That's the first thing. The second thing I look at is, what is my challenge? What have I got to do? And first of all, he's got this little blemish here. He's got a little bit of a blemish here. He's got some up here you can't really see right now. And he's got this redness in his face because it's so hot. I need to fix those. He's also got a little bit of a sweat stain down here, and the mama thought he had some sweat stain in here. I think that's shadow, but she wanted to get rid of it, so I did. So the first thing I'm going to do is come in here and do frequency separation, okay? And what frequency separation is it separates texture from color. So you can independently change or alter or adjust texture without affecting color. Or you can go in and change the color of something without affecting the texture underneath. And we talked about this last time whenever we looked at some landscapes, and I showed you can do frequency separation in landscapes. You can use frequency separation anywhere where you need to change one and not the other. So we're going to come in here and I'm going to take this blemish, and this is a blemish that looks like it's healing, pretty much healed, but let me zoom in here a little bit. It looks like it's pretty much healed, but it's got a blotch there. So I'm going to take these two and we're going to try to fix those. And then I'm going to come up here and we're going to take these spots here, and then I'm going to try to get rid of most of this sweat stain here. I'm going to do all of that in frequency separation. And this redness here, I'm also going to try to do that in frequency separation. Okay. So in your frequency separation, you have, if it's an 8-bit image, it's different than if it's a 16-bit image. All of my images that I bring into Photoshop are 16-bit images, but I created one of these just in case I didn't do that or accidentally didn't do it or found a picture that wasn't a 16-bit picture. But anything I bring in through Camera Raw comes in as a 16-bit image.
And you figure that out on your details, your picture
right here,
details. Okay.
you come up here to where it says image, mode, 16 bits right there.
Okay.
That's
it selects that for you. Okay.
Yeah. Whenever I bring it in from Camera Raw, you have the option, and I'll just show you that real quick. You have the option, if you're using Lightroom, you also have the option when you set up your edit to go to Photoshop, you tell it, you tell it whether you want it to be 16-bit or 8-bit, you tell it whether you want it to be PSD or TIFF, you tell it that sort of thing, so that when you select edit in Photoshop, it knows how to create it in Photoshop.
Okay.
But right here, you tell it right here what you want it to be. This is where I'm telling it, I want it to be Adobe Camera Raw, I want it to be an Adobe RGB. I want it to be 16-bit. I want it to come in at 300 pixels per inch resolution. Okay. So this is the definition. That's why everything that I do now from Camera Raw comes in that way. You have the ability to do the same thing in Lightroom.
Okay.
Okay. So Pat, this is for you. This is your actions panel. If you don't see an actions panel, you can come over here and click right here and it will open your actions panel for you. And once you're done, you can close it. You don't ever have to have it open all the time. But if you want it open all the time, you can put it in here as a tab, and all you have to do is click on it. It'll show up over here and just drag it over there into there and it becomes a tab. Okay. Then when you see it over here, all you do is highlight it. And this is your run button right here. You just click right there and it's going to run that particular action. Make a liar out of me. There we go. Now, in this action, what it does is it sets a Gaussian blur for the color layer. You have a color layer and a texture layer. Sets a Gaussian blur for your color layer. And it's saying here, the next step, a Gaussian blur dialog box will appear. Adjust blur to just enough to not see texture. So I'm going to click OK. And now you have your Gaussian blur open. And now you're able to look at this. And you can push it down. And this comes with a little experience just above where you can't see texture. So 4.2 is pretty good. And you want a little less blur on guys than you do on girls. Because on girls, you're going to soften the skin anyway. On guys, you don't want to soften the skin if you don't have to. Okay. So now we have frequency separation ready to go. The texture layer over here, and I'm over here on my layers panel, the texture layer over here will allow me to go in and adjust just the texture. Color allows me to go in and just affect color. So we're starting with texture, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to choose my healing brush. And I like to use a healing brush, but you can choose in your healing panel, you can choose the healing brush tool or the spot healing brush, patch tool. You've got different options. You can also use the clone stamp tool. So whatever tool you like to use to remove blemishes or something of that nature, you can use here. But I'm going to use the healing brush because it works pretty well. Now, for a while, I used the spot healing. I mean, this is the spot healing brush. For a while, I used the healing brush. And the difference is the healing brush is very much like what you have in Lightroom, where the spot healing brush, I have to go select a sampling area for it to use. So the healing brush, if I just come in here and paint over that like this, it does it on its own. And notice that it got rid of the texture, but not the color. And that's what you expect. Now come over here. It's kind of hard to see. I can't even find my cursor. Come over here to the right, the one on the right that looks like it's kind of healing. And I'm going to go over it, and it's probably not going to do anything because it's pretty much removed anyway. So see, it didn't do very much. Now this under his eye over here, I think is a mole. So I'm going to leave that alone. Natural things like that, you're going to leave alone. But I'm going to come up here to the forehead, and I'm going to take this little dot right there and this one up here, and then you got this one up here, then you got this. And I'm just going to kind of go around and look for little things like that to get rid of. Okay, and that really is it. He doesn't have anything on his neck. I mean, I could get rid of moles, but I don't really like to do that. He doesn't have anything on his arms. I'm not going to mess with his birthmark. A little bit of a mole right there. And I like looking for these things because, you know, these kids are out having a good time. And a lot of times they'll get all scratched up and whatever. If you're into sports, they'll have scratches on them and stuff like that. So you want to try to get rid of those things. And his legs, nothing down there. And it's kind of important to make sure. It's got a little bit of scratch, it looks like right here. I almost missed it. Right there. Okay, whoops. So we've done that. Now we want to go in and get rid of the color. Now there are several ways to get rid of the color. One of the ways I like doing it the best is to clone over it with another color that's very similar. In this case, we have an issue with his beard. So in his beard, when we clone over this, it's going to have a negative space there. So what I probably would do is come down here somewhere and clone part of his beard and put it on top of it, and nobody would ever be the wiser. Now, right underneath here is another little one that I kind of missed. So I'm gonna go back to my healing brush right quick and take care of that. There we go. So, oops, I did that in color. It's supposed to be in texture. I didn't think that looked right. Okay. You kind of notice whenever you make mistakes like that because it doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Okay. I also wanted to show you a mistake that I make. And one time when I first did it, I thought, oh, I don't know what the heck I've done. I don't know how to fix this. If you have sample all layers checked up here and you go to wipe something off, it's going to do this. Whoa, because it's sampling all the layers. And you don't want it to sample all the layers. You want it to only sample the layer, the texture layer, because that's what you're working on. So if that happens, immediately think, oh, sample all layers. Turn that off and you're good to go. Okay. So if we look at the color, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to use my clone stamp tool, and I'm going to pick somewhere that's pretty similar to the same color. And I think it's kind of on the chin over here. It's pretty similar. So I'm going to maybe a little lighter up in here somewhere. So just select and then come over here and just kind of clone over that to get rid of that color. And it's a little bit too red, so we can clone over a little bit more. There we go. And get rid of that. And that got rid of that color. So then you can come over here and do the same thing over here. Oops, my Alt key sticks every now and then. So color over that, and that gets rid of that. So now you can see that we've gotten rid of those two biggest issues. This is before and this is after. And I don't think I even need to clone any of the beard over that. I think it worked pretty good. So I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go over all of these little sweat spots, and I'm going to see those as being textured. So I'm going to go back to my texture, and go back to my spot healing brush, and I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to go over these. And this will take just a few minutes, but I'm going to go a little fast here so that we can get on to some bigger and better things. And I don't think we're going to be done by 9 o'clock, but we may continue this some other time. But right here, the healing brush is one of those that you have to be careful around other areas, like this brown there. Here we go. And come in here. And we're getting rid of most of these specular highlights that the sweat causes. Okay. And like I said, this is a pretty easy one. So we're starting easy and slow. Okay, so we've kind of gotten rid of all of these, and you could go on and just make sure you get them all. So if you look at the before and after, it's gotten rid of most of the sweat there. So now you just have a little bit of a highlight on his head. And I was going to come in here and try to color over that, but I don't really think I need to. I think it looks pretty good the way it is. But these spots here are spots from where I removed blemishes. So we are going to go back to color and go back to our clone stamp tool. And I'm going to click here, and I'm just going to come in here and just kind of go over these. Get rid of those as best I can. And you'll notice I'm on 50% up here. It's probably a good idea not to try to do it at 100%. Okay, so now those are pretty much gone. The only thing left really is the red around this area. Any questions on anything so far? Frequency separation is pretty simple once you learn about it. And I know I have seen in tutorials where they have used frequency separation for many, many, many things. And I'm just kind of blown away by it, about how many different ways it can be used. This is pretty much red in this area right here. So what I'm going to do is I could come in and try to use color by cloning. Cloning is going to be awfully hard because it's going to be, I have to find a sample place and then come in and that sample is going to move around as I move around, if you know what I mean. So to me, it's easier to try to paint over it. So I'm back in color. I'm going to use my regular brush. And I drew this around it. I'm going to, there's 0 pixels of feathering. I want some feathering in this because I don't want it to be a hard line whenever I make the change. So I'm going to deselect that, and I'm going to change my feathering to about 10% or about 10 pixels. And I'm not sure that's going to be the right amount. We'll see. And come around here and do it again. And when you see me, it's going to shrink. So it shrunk just a little bit, but what it's going to do is feather that 10 pixels now. Whatever I do inside here, it's going to give me a feathering. So in color, I have my brush. I'm going to change normal to color. And that shouldn't be necessary because I'm in color already, but I'm doing it just to be safe, because when you paint with color now, it should only be affecting color and not texture, which is what this is all about here. But I don't know. I'm just trying to be careful. So I'm going to change that to 30%. That's usually where I start. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to sample a color that I want to paint over this. So I'm just going to sample like maybe this color. Okay. Okay, and then I'm going to come in here and just paint a little bit over that color. And you can see it already made a little bit of a difference. Now this right here, this area around his eye right here is a lot darker than everything else. If I paint over it again, it's going to become a darker color rather than a more of a, whatever you want to call this, a skin tone down here. It's just going to become a darker color. And that might become an issue. But I'm going to see by painting over it again just one more time. And it's just a little bit of a more desaturated look. It's getting closer and closer to his cheek color here. And I went over this today and I kind of left it at this. But I'm going to come in here and do one more thing. Typically when you're doing this for ladies, you're softening their skin. So you can also come in here and do what's called a blur technique and do a filter blur, Gaussian blur, and then come in here and push this up, and that color should slowly fade a little bit. Oops, it turned black. I went too far. So that color is becoming, oops, a little less noticeable. Around the 20, that goes away. So now that color, that spot is pretty much gone. What that does though is it softens the skin. Even though it retains some texture there, it softens the skin. So I tend to try not to do that on guys, but I think it got rid of that spot really well. So now if you turn it off on, you can see that it reduced that red quite a bit. Now, did I do it too much? Maybe, and we could debate that. But that, I think, did pretty good about on the red there. There's still a little bit of a demarcation line here. And what you could do, still in the color with your brush, you could come up here and take this sample and just kind of come down here and just kind of paint over that a little bit until it kind of blends in a little better. So one more thing, I think I'm done with frequency separations. Any questions on that? Off, on, off, on.
So do you have to make this frequency separation action, or is this something that's built in there, or what?
I gave you this action. It's actually a technique that you do. You can create each one of these layers yourself manually, but I created this action so that I didn't have to do that, because you have to remember, you have to get on this layer here, and you have to come over to image, apply image, and you have to select certain things, and then you have to go up here to texture and do, I mean, it's a little bit of a building process to create these two layers. So I created this action to do it for me, and I don't even remember how to do it. That's why I put the instructions. I put the instructions in the files section of our group, as well as the actions too. The actions are there as well as the instructions on frequency separation. So it doesn't come with Photoshop, but the capabilities come with Photoshop.
So when you do your frequency, when you click on that, it automatically pulls your layers up. You have it set to pull up a texture and okay.
Yes.
And a color. Okay.
Yes.
What's the third one? I can't read that one. Oh, that's the camera raw. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do with the skin too is I'm going to reduce some of this shine. And I typically do that. I had, it's funny because I had, when I shot the softball girls this last March or April, whenever it was, immediately one of the girls says, "You're going to reduce my shine, aren't you?" And I go, yeah, I'm going to do that. So they expect that. And basically you don't want to remove it. You just want to make it not so prevalent. So to do this, I add an empty layer, and then I come in here with my brush, and my brush is set at 30 on color, just like that. And I come in here and I select something really close as a sample, and then I just kind of paint over it. And I usually go over it a couple of times, maybe 3, and that just kind of reduces it right there. And then I come over here and I do the same thing, and I'll come in here, and that may be a little too much. Something like that. So now you have from there to there. And it's, you don't want, it shows depth, so you don't want to remove it completely, but you want it not to be such a big deal. He's got a little bit above his lip here as well. Let's see if I can find my cursor. There we go. So I'm going to come in here, sample right here, and then just come in here and kind of color in here. You have to be careful. See, I just spilled over there, and I don't like that. So I'm going to come in here again.
Okay, so now when you've said, okay, I'm going to back up on that a little bit, I think I went too far. What are you doing to make it go the other way?
If I went, okay, I can hit Control Z to undo.
Okay, Control Z.
If I like what I've done, I just want it to be a little bit lighter, I can go over here to opacity and pull the opacity down. The thing is if I pull the opacity down for up here, and then I come in here and do this, I'm doing it at that same opacity. So you have to be careful that if I do this and I don't like it and I want to bring it down, I bring the opacity down. When I paint in here, it's going to be at whatever opacity because I'm on the same layer. So
okay. Yeah, so you're changing your opacity in that layer.
Yes, you can. I didn't do that, but you could. So see, if here I go, that's too much, I can take the opacity and now it's going to bring that brightness back a bit. See, if I bring it all the way down, you can see it all again. But if I put it back up here, as I bring it up, it's softening it. So, but
that'll change all the spaces, even that area by the lip. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. Whatever you've done on that layer, it changes everything.
Okay.
So on that same layer, see, I might want to do his lip here. I like it on his lower lip, but not right above his lip right here. So I'm going to come in here and we're going to copy right here. And then I'll just come in here and paint a little bit like right there. And I did spill over on his red, red on his lip. So I'm going to do a Command Z to back up and take that off and then come in here like that. So now it's not on the red part of his lip. But I'm going to leave this bottom part down here because I like the reflection off of his bottom lip. And if he had it in here on his top lip, I would do that too, but not above up here. I want to take that down. And that's just me personally. That's just what I like. Okay, so I always name my layers. So this is going to be, I double click on it and I'm going to say reduce shine. Okay, so now I know what that is. Now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to whiten his teeth. Okay, his teeth are pretty white, but I do this on just about everybody. If we're doing this for real, I may not do it, but I just want to show you how I do that. I have an action over here and I click on the whiten teeth. I click the action to go, creates this layer. Notice that it's in black. That's because it's made some adjustments up here, but I want to hide it. I just want to reveal it on the teeth. So now I'm going to come in here with the brush, make sure that I'm on normal. It's on 30%, so I'm going to go to 100%. And I'm going to come in here, paint on his teeth with white, not black. And you can see how it lightens them just a little bit. His are not as noticeable as what we're going to see here in just a minute. Hopefully we'll have time. And if it's too much, sometimes it's a little bit neon white. So you can bring it down with the opacity. And for him, his teeth are already pretty white. I'm going to make it about 70%. And always turn it off and on and see the difference. See, it's just a very subtle difference on this one. Okay.
Opacity. Okay.
Okay. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some whitening to his eyes. So I click on this. I'm going to hit action, whiten eyes, same exact thing. But I'm going to go into where the white is of the eyes with my brush at 100% and paint white. Okay. Right here. Now notice it's giving it a little bit of a blue tint. That's because as your eyes become more clear and white, they actually have a little bit of a blue tint to them. So now if I back off here, you can see how it whitens the eyes. Now that might be too much. If it is, bring it down, maybe about 60%. I always like to lighten the eyes, make sure the eyes are really light. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the irises pop. So I'm just going to write down the list here. Make the irises pop. And this one you're going to go, whoa, but bear with me. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to paint around the irises at 100% like this. Now, oops, you want to make sure you don't get it on the pupil. So we're going to paint some of it back right here. Okay. And then I'm going to come over here. That pupil's a little big. So see how little the pupil is over here? This one can't be that much bigger. It's not going to be noticeable whenever you do the final retouch on it, but just to make it look a little bit right. I'm going to come in here. Oops. Like this. And the idea is not to paint on the iris ring here, not to paint on the pupil. Iris ring is not that big. Here we go. Paint on the pupil, come up here. Okay, close enough. So now, how's that look?
Wow.
Now we come over here and take it down to about 10%. And when you take it down to 10%, then you can come in here and go before and after. And not much difference. So I'm going to kick it up to about 15. And you can begin to see the lightness in the eyes. It's a subtle amount. You don't want it to be overbearing because I just want to lighten them enough to give it a little bit of light. Okay, so that's the deal is linear dodge as your blending mode. And basically there are no adjustments in here at all, anywhere on here. You could pick anything in here. I could take this and do levels and not do anything to levels and change it to linear dodge. And it's going to make this effect. I'm not doing anything on levels. All I'm doing is making this a linear dodge blend mode. So that's all that's happening here behind the scenes. If you wanted to do that, all you'd have to do is just create any kind of adjustment with linear dodge and turn the mask black and then paint in wherever you want it. So I know that's confusing, but I'm just wanted to explain that I'm really not doing much here. All I'm doing is applying a linear dodge screen to it. So now what I'm going to do is pretty much the same thing, except I'm going to apply screen. So I'm going to come in here and we'll just use levels just for grins. And I'm going to change it to screen. And then I'm going to invert this so it's black. And so nothing, you can't see anything. Okay. Now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add a little bit of a half moon here. It should be across from the catch light. He's got a little bit of a catch light on each side because he's got light coming in on each side. But we're going to put it right here. And basically, I'm going to start at 10%. And I'm going to come in here and paint white so I can reveal that screen that's on the layer. I'm just going to come in here and just kind of do this. Create a half moon with it a little bit more in the middle. Something like this. And then I'm going to come over here and do the same thing. And all that does is it adds a little bit of a half moon. Where'd my cursor go? Here it is. And if you turn it off and on, you can see what it's done. Okay. And I'm going to call it half moon. Like that. And if it's, I'm going to back out and you've got a look like that. And if you don't like it, take it down. And sometimes I do take it down quite a bit because I get kind of carried away. And that's at 62%. And you can see it just adds a little bit of light there into those irises. Okay. Final thing I'm going to do to the eyes is I'm going to add another blank layer. I'm going to take my sharpen tool, and I don't have my sharpen tool on my toolbar. So I'm going to come over here and grab it. Now, if you don't know what I'm doing, you have these little, let's see, let's just pick something. You have these three little dots underneath. And if you click on that, it opens up all the other tools that you have that are not on your toolbar. And all you have to do is scroll to the one you want to use. And I'm going to use the sharpen tool. Okay. So now I have the sharpen tool open. And up here in the toolbar, I'm going to have this at 40%. You can make it 60%, 20%, doesn't really matter. The way the sharpen tool works is the more you rub on it, the sharper it gets. So if I come in here, whoops, if I come in here and rub, the more I rub, the sharper those eyes are going to get. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to over sharpen on his eyes until you can see a little bit of particles in there. So over sharpening, oops, you know what? I'm on the brush tool. So go back in history, get off the brush. Okay. Okay, now I'm on the sharpen tool. I was wondering why nothing was happening. So on the sharpen tool, I'm going to come in here and just start rubbing and look at how it begins to bring out some of that stuff in his eyes. And you just rub and just keep rubbing, not letting up, and it brings out some of that stuff in his eyes. So it becomes very sharp. Now, if that's too glassy looking or whatever, again, take the opacity down where it's not so sharp, but I kind of like it like that. And that's about 65%. Along with that, I'm going to come in here and sharpen this chain. Always sharpen the jewelry. You know, I had 3 other portraits for us to look at, and we're obviously not going to get to those. I was going to do a little bit of liquefy and do a little bit of copy paste and do a little bit of painting, and I was going to show you all that. We're obviously not going to get to that. Okay, so that is pretty much it. So we're going to sharpen. The only thing left, I'm going to take these and I'm going to put them in a group. I'm going to call it eyes. Okay. The last thing that I do in here is I'm going to add a vignette, and I'm going to show you how I do that. I go to the marquee and I go to the elliptical marquee, and then I come in here and I draw an ellipse, and I draw it around him, something like this. Okay. And I can make it a little bit more. Yeah. Something like that. Okay. Then I click on curves. Now, if you look at the mask over here on the layer, it's got him. He's what I'm affecting, and that's not what I want. I want the background to be affected. So I'm going to invert this mask. Now you can see that it's black in the middle and white all around the sides. Then I'm going to grab about the middle of this histogram, and I'm going to pull it down like this. And it's going to darken that background. And it's just a matter of how a taste that you have, that you want. I'm going to take this little box here, and we're going to back to feather, and I'm going to push it way over here, and the edges here are going to go away. So now you have a nice little vignette here that looks like this. Now, whenever you do that, you got to be careful as to what doesn't look right. So his leg down here may be a little dark. And let's see, his leg is a little dark. So what you can do is come in here to this mask and paint black, because you don't want to reveal it on his legs. So we're going to paint black 100% on his leg right there to kind of bring it out. And when I did that, I took a little off there. So now his leg looks a little more normal, like that. So now his leg didn't change. So if there's anything else in here you want to affect, then you can go around and adjust that. Like this may be a little light. I think it works out pretty good. Now there is if you've ever used the Nik tools, there's a thing in there called darken, light, and center, which I used to use all the time. So I kind of emulate that, since I don't have Nik anymore, even though I have the toolbar up here for it. What you can do is copy that, Command J, Control J, and it course, it doubles the darkness, but that's not what you want. So now you invert it because you want to affect him, but you don't want him to be dark. You want him to be light. So now you do this and drag it up just a little bit. And now he's light. So you have the dark and light in center. So if I take both of these and group them, you have this kind of effect here. So it lightens him and it darkens the background. And now you have him jumping out at you as the center of attention. And pretty much ready to go. I would probably do one final sharpening with topaz sharpening, but I'm not going to do that here. It'll take a few minutes. Any questions? That is him done.
So I'm curious, this isn't really have to do with Photoshop per se. So I'm assuming when you do these portraits, you have a set, this is the fee and you're going to provide X number of shots. Is that what you do? And then
I normally, I'll send the individual my prices. And basically they're very simple. And they're like 3, maybe 4 collections, which most people call packages. And then there's a bunch of a la carte stuff.
Okay.
And I'm telling them, you know, this is what you're going to, this is the, you know, the prices. So if we go out, I'm not going to charge a session fee. Then you know, if you want to buy anything, these are the prices. And then once we go out and shoot, then I take the stuff that I like and I think they're going to like, and I put it out. For this one, of course, we were in COVID and we did this over Zoom, and I did a slideshow of all the images, and her and her son sat there and looked through them as I was showing them to them, and they came back and said, I like this one, like this one, like this one, don't want that one, you know, can you do this to that one, and so on and so on. And so I said, sure. I said, I'm not going to place an order until you place an order. And so that way, you know, I know what I need to retouch. And I told her that. I said, I'm not going to retouch these until you're placing an order.
So they pick the ones that, these are the ones we like and we want you to spend the time to retouch for us.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I've done it the other way around too many times and lost too much time and money and blah, blah, blah. So I don't do that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, that seems the most logical way, because why, you know, one that you might really like and that you, or one that you thought, and they might thought, oh, that's the best one there. So
That's
yeah,
exactly right.
How you determine, because I'm sure you've got a routine down that, you know, you can do it much quicker than what you're showing us on here. But still, there's a lot of time involved in touching up all this individual eyes and all this stuff. So
yeah, it's you know, if you're doing, I mean, this lady spent $1,300 with me, so I'm going to make it look good as best I can. So I didn't mind taking a lot of time doing it. She bought an album, and I put, you know, I designed the album and put the pictures in the album that she wanted and made changes and this kind of stuff. Went out of my way to do some things. You know, I had to do the one
just
she
in
wanted.
case you're ever hauled off into court.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. No, they were very, very good, very nice.
No, she's a nice person for everything.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, and he was so easy. You know, he didn't gripe about anything. He just did whatever I asked him to do. And you know, I think he was getting tired toward the end. It was getting late, and it was so hot. We did some more outside at their house. We did some inside at their house, and you know, so we did quite a few. But yeah, that's the way I approach it now. These are my prices, you know, and I do that up front, and so they know what they're getting into. So if they wanted, you know, if they want to buy a single 5x7 and that's it, you know, it's going to cost a little bit for a 5x7. But you know, if they're going to invest the time, that, you know, I kind of know what they're, you know, if they're going to invest the time, so invest the money as well. So it's been pretty good over the last couple of years. Up to that, it was a tough time for me.
Yeah, I mean,
Just-
I've got a handful, not even a whole handful of photos of families and, you know, it's always friends of friends kind of thing, but
Yeah.
I have no desire to really do it professionally like you do, but I was just kind of curious, you know, what the process is for determining which photo you take a significant amount of time to really tweak it and make it beautiful.
Well, you know,
So
it's
when
not
you
like, go ahead.
so when you show them the pictures at first, you're showing them right out of camera.
Well, I typically will do white balance correction, maybe, you know, just a few tweaks. Ones that are out of focus, ones that are obviously bad, I throw them out, don't show those. I select probably around 25, something like that, to show them, and I'll spend about an hour maybe going through those 25 to make sure that I don't show them one that's out of focus, or don't show them one where, you know, that I wouldn't want, something like that. So yeah, they're pretty much straight out of camera. I'll do a few, like I said, a few camera raw tweaks, but that's about it.
Okay.
I mean, like this one, when we saw it in camera raw over here, this is kind of what they saw. And I told her, I said, that's not retouched. I will take that blemish off. I'll fix that red spot. You know, don't worry about it. I'll straighten it up, and, you know, that sort of thing. It has white balance corrected, and I did the auto on it, so it comes across looking pretty good. I'll tell
Yeah,
her,
it gives the basic gist of what the photos portray.
exactly. And then I think they were real pleased when they got something like this. So
Yeah.
Oh, I bet.
so she bought an album, and she bought a acrylic block, his picture, and actually she had a 12 by 12. I don't know if it was this one, but it's a 12 by 12 a hit of this kind of an image where it's, you know, out at the boat dock, that she put in on her stairwell, along with the two girls that she had up there that were already graduated. So she really liked this. And then the one in his suit in front of the fireplace was one that she really, really liked too. He's got his head looking down. He's holding an old football that belonged to his great grandfather or something like that. And
Cool.
so she really liked that one because of that. And that was just well, let's see if we get the color right type shot. It wasn't really posed or anything. And she thought it was really cool. So sometimes you get lucky like that.
Yeah.
So there were others here. I wanted to show you how to get rid of something like this. This guy, you know, so basically he looks like this now when you get rid of it. It's, you know, if you're, you know, you're shooting your granddaughter or something like that, and she had a bad day and she had this kind of stuff, then you know how to get rid of it, that sort of thing. So you could have a picture that you might want to put on your wall or something. And this young lady right here is a senior. She's not posed real well, so she looks kind of big here, and she doesn't have this. And I want to show you some liquify to fix that. This girl is a swimmer, so she has really broad shoulders, and she does have big legs, but they're muscle. So she's a big girl in her torso, but it's because she's a swimmer. She's also extremely, extremely smart. She got a full scholarship at A&M for biophysics engineering or something like that, and it was I didn't understand what she was talking about. So I wanted to yeah, we could come in here, and she's pretty good. She, you know, very few little blemishes here, little bumps, yellow teeth. I wanted to get rid of those and add some light in her eyes. And then I think she must have gone camping or something. She's got all these little bumps on her, like she's got mosquito bites or something. I was
Oh
going
my
to get rid
goodness,
of all
yeah,
of
that
those.
looks like mosquito bites.
Yeah, so I was going to get rid of all of those, but it was the liquify I wanted to show you, and it didn't fix it really. I mean, I love this picture, like from here, a lot. I think that's a great picture, but I didn't, you know, I should have done something else about this. So I added liquify in here, and it did that. I added a little bit of sway in her back. And took a little bit off there. And then I did some other work, and this was how it turned out. Add a vignette to that to darken the background. and did the stuff to her eyes, whitened her teeth a little bit. They're not near as yellow as they were, added a little bit of glow to her lip, and just a little bit of dodging and burning, added a little bit of highlights here and there to give her a good look. So that was one I wanted to show you how I did. And then this one is one that I shot last week when I did my photo session. And I wanted to show you how I retouched her. This is a model, so a lot more leeway on what you can do. And my first retouch was this right here. And you can see I left these moles here, but I softened and I got rid of a bunch of moles down here, some stuff on her forehead and everything, lightened her eyes. Then I went back and I did more. And basically, if you remember from this, she's got this highlight on this nose, side of the nose. I got rid of it here one way and got rid of it here a different way. And then I came in and did some painting. I wanted to show you how to use the mixer brush and the smudge tool to come in and do some painting. And I did some painting all around her face. Did not do her eyes or anything, her chest or neck or anything like that, but I did her forehead and painted around here. And you can see how much softer it is on this one than it is on this one. And here I did frequency separation. In this one, I think, no, I didn't. I didn't do frequency separation, which is one reason why it's not soft. Okay, but I did do some removal of some things and did some dodging and burning. I just didn't do frequency separation, which I don't know why I didn't. Then I come in here, but I did come in here, and this is the painting that I did. I take it off now, and you can see that there is some texture there. When you do painting on there, it removes the texture. So now you've got no texture on her cheeks, no texture, no texture over here on her jawline, on her chin, very little texture anywhere because I did the paint. But it does add a different kind of look and does a bunch of softening. So I was going to show you how to do that as well. And dodging and burning and all that kind of stuff. But we're out of time. So any questions on anything that we talked about?
No, I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
And
Well,
I would think going back to in-person meetings is probably what we need to look at going forward. It's just so much easier to follow along. We've got our own computers and can kind of do what you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. This show and tell, it's kind of neat to see somebody do something, but then you go back.
Kind of shows you what can be done, and I can't, even if I had a separate monitor, I couldn't follow along with what you're saying and do what you're talking about at the same time.
Yeah.
Whereas an in-person thing is a little bit easier.
And tonight I went over it very fast too.
Yeah.
You know, it's nice to go over just a little bit, like maybe do frequency separation and then let you do it, and then do, a little bit on the eyes and then let you do it, and then do a little bit of dodge and burn and then let you do it, and that sort of thing. That's the best way to do it is having your
that studio, that sounds like a great deal for us if we can do that.
So I think we need to think about when, like Saturday mornings, like we did before, or if we don't do Saturday mornings, we can't do 4 hours worth. Is 4 hours too long? Is it okay? Should we do, Tuesday night or, whatever, Monday night or something like that? And we could do, I don't know. So
I'd say Saturday morning, and for about 4 hours, I think would be
I guess the room that they've got is a totally separate room, so we wouldn't interfere if they had photo shoot going on in another room.
Well, he rents the entire studio to you, so there would not be any other activity there at all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Saturday morning works best because, some of us are lucky enough to be fully retired, so we can go any afternoon or something. But some people do still work, so an evening would be 4 hours in an evening is pretty long.
Yeah.
For people that are still working.
Yeah, that would be pretty tough.
Well, and I think the Saturday mornings, and when you do, I know there was some talk or a poll or something that was up on the Facebook page about possibly having 2 different levels at 2 different.
Right.
So,
Yep.
because obviously I would be lost in some of the other stuff that, I mean, I'm just trying to get my feet wet.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Do we want to start over? And I'm okay with that. If we want to, I don't know if we have enough people interested in starting over. I think doing, a basic and doing an advanced would be great. I just don't know if we would have the time
Enough people.
and enough people. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, I think what would do good for me would be just to do maybe one of the basic setup of Photoshop so that we get things set up right.
okay.
I know
Well,
maybe half of maybe a 2 hours on that. I don't know if
You know,
Okay.
kind of like a refresher
4 hours.
course for part of it for the setup, and then,
right.
or you could start again with more of the basic, and then as you get more advanced, the people that feel, well, now I'm ready to join in,
Right. Yeah.
so.
Well, just remember that our first time when we did it the very first time there in the rec center, that there were like 30 people that were attended. And then that was we did 4 hours of talking about the menu and talking about, I think we got to the toolbar and that was pretty much it. And then the second time we only had like 15 people and we went through the rest of it. And then the next time we had like 8 people. So, I mean, it will dwindle down real quick.
Yeah.
And it may
Do
be
you think it dwindled down because people lost interest? It was too beginner level?
I think that a lot of people were expecting a lot of stuff right up front. And I think I'm excited about learning Photoshop. I'm going to learn how to replace heads and do eyes and do this kind of stuff. And you go there and all you learn is the menu, And so if I started with how to replace a head, you'd be going, wait a minute. I don't get that. I don't understand.
Where do I find that? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of a catch-22 there. And I think that you're so excited to learn.
You can't please everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very
No.
true.
So you're so excited to learn, and then you get there and you want to run before you can walk, and you just can't. So anyway, all right, I'll put out another poll. You're welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.
Bob, when you present this, can you put the address and everything? So,
sure.
Because I can probably come on a Saturday morning, but I'm not going to drive that far at night. And so, and, I'm not asking you to arrange this for me, but
sure. No, that's a good idea. Then everybody kind of knows where we're talking about, and people that live in, Sulphur Springs or something may not want to go that far. So, yeah, give you an idea where to. That's a good idea. I didn't think about that, so I'll do that. Anything else?
And also the probably the breakdown on how many, if we have 10 people, it's this much. If we have then and maybe that's the only thing when you have to charge for things. It's like, well, if 5 people show up, it's one price. If 10 people show up, it's a different price. I don't know if you just don't say this is how much it is, enough to cover the basics. And I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to do because you never know how many people are going to show up.
I'll just be open. It's $125 for 4 hours.
Okay.
So if we have 10 people at $10, that's $100. If we have 10 people at $15, it's $150. So, I said 15 because, if we only have 6, and then next time we have 9, and the next time we have 4, maybe it'll balance out.
Yeah.
There's no free option, just so that, we would like, then that can be for your time even,
No, I didn't understand that. Say that again.
I'm just saying if there were a free option of some place to meet,
Oh, yeah.
then you could have the committed people, because if you pay for something, you're committed to it usually. And then that could just be for
Yep.
your time.
Well, that's why I wanted to, in the meetup, have it paid in through meetup so that you're committed whenever you RSVP. And then we know that the people that are RSVPing, even if they don't show up, at least I've got it paid for.
Yes,
Got it covered.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Very
Well,
true.
but then that takes the place of somebody like your studio thing. My Saturday just opened wide up, and I was able to go. And if you didn't have someone show up, then that takes the place of somebody who would like to learn.
Yeah, but we don't have a limitation on this.
Right.
Could we do
Oh,
it?
for number of people. Okay.
Could we do it at the community center? I mean, at least
Well,
that way
it's-
you get the money yourself.
That was $500 for 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
Oh, ouch.
So I mean, that's actually a better place, but that's why I had to, I love it there. It's bigger, and they got a projector, and it's big, it's nice and everything.
Yeah.
But it was $100 an hour plus $50 for the projector or something like that. So it was
Holy
around
cow.
$450 or $500.
Yeah. Well,
So-
I didn't realize that. So yeah.
Yeah, and unless Ron can swing something or work something out so we can get it for free.
Yeah, I don't
know.
know. Saturday morning is probably going to be tough because I
Yeah.
imagine the weekends are their busy times.
Mhm.
Again, if you did it during the week, there's so many people that wouldn't be able to go because
Very true.
some people are still working. So
What about the Coil House on the weekends? Has anybody?
that's not a good place for a class like this. I don't think.
Yeah, if we had 5 people, maybe,
Mm,
in my opinion, and there's,
Somebody's gonna have to bring a screen. Well, I know Bob has one, but
yeah.
I mean,
Then it becomes laborious
yeah.
to haul all your things there.
What are you doing? What are you doing? All right. Well, thank you, Bob.
Yes.
you're welcome.
Yes,
Bye.
see you later.
Thank you.
Thank
See you later.
Y'all have a good night.
Thank you.